The galaxy was old. Civilizations had risen, fallen, and rebuilt themselves countless times across the stars. Empires measured their age not in centuries but in millennia. The stars were full of species who had mastered peace, science, and diplomacy. To most of them, war was a relic of the past, something primitive and barbaric. And in that vast map of the galaxy, Earth was a dot no one cared about. Humans had never been invited to the great councils of the stars. They were seen as fragile, emotional, and backward. Compared to the great empires, humanity had only just started reaching out into space with crude ships. While the Djarin built massive cities that floated above suns, and the Veil shaped whole planets with their science, humans still argued among themselves and built warships that looked small next to alien cruisers. To the galaxy, Earth was a curiosity, nothing more. But things began to change when the Krith Dominion returned. The Krith were not like the other species. Where others had grown tired of war, the Krith had embraced it. They were conquerors by design, their society built on expansion and control. For centuries they had been quiet, gathering strength. Then, without warning, they began their campaign. World after world fell. The first to be attacked were small colonies on the rim of the galaxy. These colonies surrendered almost instantly. Their fleets were destroyed in minutes. The Krith offered no peace treaties, no negotiations. They came, they conquered, and they ruled through fear. The Krith war machine was unstoppable. Entire species laid down their arms at the first sign of Krith warships. Even powerful empires with advanced fleets avoided confrontation, believing survival was better than resistance, and then the Krith scouts reached Earth. At first it seemed like nothing special. A blue-green planet with primitive defenses, a species too young to matter. To the Krith, Earth was just another easy target, another world to break. But the Krith miscalculated. When the first Krith fleet entered Earth's system, they expected a quick fight. Their ships were larger, their weapons stronger, and their technology centuries ahead. Victory was supposed to take hours, maybe less. Instead, the humans fought back with everything they had. Earth's orbital defenses were weak compared to Krith standards, but humans did not surrender. They launched every missile, every fighter, every piece of hardware they could throw into the sky. Civilian pilots volunteered to fly. Old ships, once considered outdated, were pulled out of storage and armed. It wasn't order that guided humanity. It was desperation, unity, and a fire the Krith did not understand. The first battle shocked the galaxy. Reports spread through hidden channels. The fragile humans had not only resisted, but destroyed several Krith ships. Their losses were heavy, but they had drawn blood from the invincible conquerors. Other species whispered, was it luck? Was it madness? Or was there something about humans that had been overlooked? On the ground, the Krith learned another lesson. When their soldiers landed on Earth, they expected easy victories. The Krith were genetically bred for war. They towered over humans in strength, their armor was advanced, and their weapons were devastating. Against most species, a ground battle lasted only hours, but on Earth, battles stretched into days, then weeks. Humans fought in the ruins of their cities, turning every street into a fortress, every home into a trap. They used guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and sabotage. When they ran out of ammunition, they improvised weapons. When vehicles were destroyed, they used explosives made from fuel and chemicals. The Krith did not understand. To them, war was order, discipline, and control. But humanity thrived in chaos. They adapted faster than the Krith could calculate. Every loss became a lesson. Every defeat turned into a strategy for the next battle. The Krith commanders began to worry. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Varash of the Krith Dominion studied the reports with unease. He had fought hundreds of campaigns, conquered dozens of species. Never before had he seen such resistance from such a young civilization. These humans, he muttered. They do not know when to stop. His second in command, a cold and calculating officer, tried to reason. Perhaps it is desperation. A dying fire always burns brightest before it fades. But Varash wasn't so sure. He watched the battle recordings, humans charging despite impossible odds, soldiers holding lines long after they should have broken. civilians taking up arms as if they had trained all their lives. It was more than desperation, it was instinct. Across the galaxy, alien observers took notice. Smuggler networks, rebel groups, and frightened empires all heard the same message. Humans were different. Unlike other species, they did not surrender when crushed. They fought harder. Some remembered Earth's history, the countless wars, the endless conflicts on their homeworld. While other species had grown in peace, humans had been forged in fire. Their entire evolution was shaped by struggle, a Jaran scholar wrote in a private journal. Perhaps war is not new to them. Perhaps war is their element. On Earth, the fighting grew worse. Cities burned, oceans turned red with fire. But still, humanity endured. Captain Elias Ward stood in the ruins of New York, his rifle in hand. His unit had been reduced to half its size, but his soldiers were still alive. Krith patrols moved through the city, hunting survivors, but Ward's people fought them off again and again. "We don't stop," Ward told his soldiers. "We don't kneel. We make them regret stepping foot on our planet." Those words spread, like wildfire, from soldier to soldier, from civilian to civilian. Humanity began to unite under a single thought. They were not victims. They were fighters. The Krith had expected another conquest. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand. By the end of the first month, Earth was still standing, damaged, bleeding, but alive. And the Krith were forced to admit that humanity was no ordinary prey. The galaxy began to whisper louder now. Some called humans reckless, others called them dangerous, and a few began to believe something terrifying. These humans, they were not born for war. They were created for it. And deep in the shadows of the galaxy, oppressed species began to hope. If humanity could resist, maybe they could too. The fire had been lit. The Krith Dominion had never been stopped before. Their fleets rolled through the stars like storms, crushing worlds and enslaving species without hesitation. Their soldiers were engineered for obedience, their ships built for domination. But Earth had changed something. For the first time in centuries, the Krith had been forced into a fight they could not win quickly. What was supposed to be an easy conquest had turned into a grinding struggle. Reports spread through the galaxy, and the name human began to echo in hidden channels, whispered by those who dared to hope. The galaxy was watching. Above Earth, Admiral Varash studied his tactical screens. A month had passed, and still the humans fought. They should have broken long ago. Instead, every battle grew harder. Every victory cost the Krith more lives than they had planned. "This is not natural," Varash muttered, his claws tapping against the metal railing of his command deck. "Every calculation says they should surrender. Yet they fight harder, each day." His advisors offered excuses. Some said it was stubbornness, others said it was chaos. But Varash knew better. It was not chaos. It was design on Earth. Captain Elias Ward led his soldiers through the shattered streets of New York. Smoke filled the sky, and the ruins of skyscrapers stood like broken teeth against the horizon. The Krith had bombed the city for days, but the humans still held. Ward crouched behind rubble, watching a Krith patrol march through the ruins. Their armor gleamed, their movements perfectly in sync. "Wait," Ward whispered. His soldiers, dirty and exhausted, held their fire. The Krith soldiers scanned the ruins with their advanced visors, confident no one could hide from them. But when they passed, Ward gave the signal. Explosives planted earlier erupted in fire, collapsing a building onto the patrol. The few survivors staggered out only to be cut down by human rifles. Ward exhaled slowly. "That's how we fight," he said. "Not with strength, with will." Across the ocean in the mountains of Asia, resistance groups formed. Civilians armed themselves with whatever they could find. Hunters used old rifles. Farmers built traps. Children carried messages through forests and ruins, risking their lives to keep fighters connected. The Krith could not understand it. On other worlds, civilians had hidden or surrendered. But on Earth, the civilians became soldiers, and in space, Humanity pushed back. The first human fleet was a patchwork of desperation. Old warships, half-broken carriers, and even refitted cargo vessels were thrown together. Engineers worked day and night, pulling alien wreckage apart and welding it onto human ships. They learned fast. Every captured Krith engine was studied, every weapon tested. When the Krith returned with a new fleet, expecting to wipe out Earth's orbit, they found something different waiting for them. The humans didn't fight like the Krith. They didn't form neat lines or follow predictable patterns. Instead, they attacked in swarms, broke off suddenly, then returned from unexpected angles. Small, fast ships harassed Krith cruisers, while larger vessels laid traps. Even damaged, ships rammed into enemy hulls if it meant taking a cruiser down. It wasn't war as the galaxy knew it. It was survival turned into strategy. And for the first time, a Krith fleet retreated. News spread like wildfire. On the mining worlds of the Veil, enslaved workers heard whispers. The humans fought the Krith and won a battle. In the hidden colonies of the Ralvek, rebels passed messages through smuggler ships. The humans are still alive. In the halls of the galaxy's neutral council, frightened leaders debated. Some wanted to avoid the Krith's wrath. Others quietly prayed that humanity might succeed where they had failed. The flame of resistance had been lit. Back on Earth, Ward and his soldiers received reinforcements. Survivors from Europe, Africa, and Asia joined the fight in North America. They came with different languages, different flags, but one purpose. For the first time in history, humanity was united, not under politics or borders, but survival. Ward watched as new recruits trained in the ruins. Old veterans taught them how to move, how to fight, how to survive against the Krith. Children who had lost their families became runners, carrying food and medicine between groups. Humanity was changing, and the Krith could feel it. Admiral Varash sent a message to his high command. "These humans are not like others," he wrote. "They do not fight to live. They live to fight. Every loss they suffer only strengthens their resolve. They learn from each defeat. If we do not crush them quickly, they will grow into something the galaxy has not seen in thousands of years, true warriors." But his warning was dismissed. The Krith were arrogant. They had ruled too long, conquered too many. They could not imagine that a young species from a forgotten planet could threaten them, so they sent more fleets. The second wave arrived above Earth like a storm. Dozens of ships filled the skies, blotting out the stars. The Krith believed numbers would be enough. But the humans had prepared. Using stolen technology and their own creativity, they had built new weapons. Orbital mines, cloaked drones, and hidden stations waited. When the Krith ships advanced, the sky exploded with traps. Human fleet, small but determined, struck at their flanks. Fighters dove between massive warships, weaving through enemy fire with reckless skill. Krith gunners could not predict them, could not calculate their chaos, and in the middle of it all, human voices shouted over radios. "Hold the line! Hit them where it hurts! No surrender!" The battle raged for hours. Dozens of human ships were destroyed, but for every vessel lost, the Krith paid in blood. When the smoke cleared, Earth still stood. Across the galaxy, hope became fire. In the shadows, enslaved species whispered new words. "If the humans can fight, so can we." The Veil miners armed themselves with stolen tools. The Ralvek rebels launched raids. Even the neutral council could no longer ignore the truth. Humanity was changing the galaxy without even trying. But for humanity itself, the war was only beginning. On the ground, Ward sat with his soldiers by a fire in the ruins of a building. The night was quiet for once, the stars above hidden by smoke. His soldiers looked exhausted, their faces dirty and scarred. Yet their eyes still burned. Ward looked at them and spoke. "Listen to me," he said. "The Krith think we are weak. They think we will break. But they don't understand us, they don't know what built us. We are not a people born in peace, we are a people forged in struggle. Every war in our history made us stronger. Every hardship shaped us. And now the galaxy is learning what we already know." He paused, his voice steady. We weren't born for war. We were created for it. His words spread again, passed from soldier to soldier, from city to city, from Earth to the stars. The galaxy had begun to notice humanity, but it still underestimated them. To most species, humans were fragile, reckless, and emotional. Yet Earth had survived the first 2 waves of Krith attacks. That alone was astonishing. But what came next would shatter every assumption. Captain Elias Ward stood in the command room of the newly refitted flagship, the Liberty. The ship was a strange assembly of salvaged human and captured alien technology. It was not perfect. It rattled with every maneuver. Its weapon systems were jury-rigged, and yet it was all humans had, and it was enough. Ward looked at the map of the Krith fleet positions. Dozens of warships patrolled the edge of the solar system, confident in their numbers and power. The Krith had not expected the humans to strike beyond defense. They had thought the humans would cower behind their planet, fighting a hopeless battle of attrition. They were wrong. "Are we ready?" Ward asked his officers. Lieutenant Mara Chen nodded. "All systems functional, Captain. Weapons are loaded, drones are in position, the ambush is set." Ward exhaled. "Then let's remind them why we fight." The humans moved like shadows. The Krith fleet, vast and confident, had no idea what waited for them. Human ships were small, fast, and unpredictable. They attacked in waves, diving in and out of asteroid fields, through debris, and even between the cracks of destroyed stations. Their weapons fired from unexpected angles. Mines detonated where no one thought they would be. It was chaos. But for the humans, it was strategy. Ward's voice rang over the intercom. "Flank left, hit the command cruiser." Fighters swarmed a Krith ship 5 times their size, dodging plasma blasts and striking weak points exposed by human intelligence. Explosions rippled through the hull and alarms blared. The Krith had never seen tactics like this. Their calculations assumed uniform movement, predictable attacks, and obedience. Humans were neither. They were smart. They were bold. They were unstoppable. In the skies above Europe, humans coordinated strikes from Earth's orbit with attacks on Krith supply lines. Engineers had adapted alien drones for stealth raids. Small craft carried explosives, sabotaging Krith engines before vanishing into the void. Every loss the humans suffered was calculated. Every sacrifice turned into a lesson. The Krith could not understand it. Admiral Varash had never seen a species that learned so fast, adapted so quickly, and fought with such reckless ingenuity. He barked orders trying to reform his fleet, but humans were already one step ahead, always appearing where he least expected them. "Predictable," Varash growled. "Every move is unpredictable." On the ground, Ward watched as humans coordinated with orbital forces. The Krith had assumed they would occupy cities with impunity, but Earth's defenders had dug tunnels, hidden weapons, and traps in every possible location. Every Krith patrol was met with ambushes, snipers, and explosives. The planet itself became a weapon in the hands of its people. The first major victory came when a Krith cruiser attempted to land troops near the ruins of London. Human forces, both on the ground and in orbit, struck simultaneously. Fighters attacked from above while hidden squads detonated explosives beneath the landing zone. The cruiser was destroyed. It was a message. Humans could hit back, hard, fast, and unexpectedly. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. Smugglers, rebels, and oppressed species cheered quietly in the shadows. If humans, the fragile species from a forgotten planet, could destroy a Krith cruiser and fight off fleets, then maybe they could rise too. The first organized resistance movements across other worlds began to take shape. Secretly, messages were sent to Earth, offering support, technology, and intelligence. Humanity had inspired hope, and hope, the Krith knew, could be dangerous. Back aboard the Liberty, Ward studied reports from the field. Casualties had been high, but the Krith had suffered worse. Their ships were crippled, their confidence shaken. Ward's mind calculated the next strike. The humans would not simply survive. They would attack. Set coordinates for the outer rim. he said. We strike at their supply lines, hit them where it hurts. Lieutenant Chen frowned. Captain, it's risky, we're outnumbered 10-1. Ward smiled grimly. That's the point. They don't expect it. That's how we win, and win they did. The humans launched a series of strikes across the Krith supply routes. They moved swiftly, hitting depots, communication hubs, and logistics stations. Entire Krith battalions found themselves stranded without fuel, food, or reinforcements. Human ingenuity turned scarcity into strength. They used captured ships to imitate Krith communications, luring enemy forces into traps. Every move had been calculated. Every attack had a purpose. The galaxy watched in awe. Even the Krith soldiers began to whisper among themselves. They are not ordinary, one muttered. They are warriors. The Krith had fought many species, many civilizations, but they had never fought a people, like humans. They had never faced a species that turned survival into strategy, weakness into power, and desperation into victory. And the galaxy began to whisper the same thing. Humans are not fragile. Humans are not ordinary. Humans are terrifying. On Earth, celebrations were short-lived. Ward knew the Krith would retaliate harder, but he allowed himself a small moment to look out over the ruins of the planet, smoke rising from cities that were still alive. He spoke to his soldiers, many of whom had become his family. Today we showed the galaxy what we are, but this is only the beginning. They will come back. They always do. And when they do, we will be ready. Because we don't just fight to survive, we fight to win, and we were made for this. The soldiers nodded, exhausted, scarred but burning with the same fire. Humans were no longer merely surviving. They were shaping the course of the galaxy. In the Krith command fleet, Admiral Varash knew something had changed. He had believed the humans would break. Eventually, he had assumed their losses, fear, and chaos would force surrender, but the humans had shattered every expectation. He stared at his tactical display, silent for a long moment. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "This is not war. This is a storm, and it is only beginning." Back on Earth, in the ruins of cities and forests alike, civilians helped soldiers rebuild, repurpose, and strategize. Children delivered messages, scientists adapted alien tech, and veterans trained new fighters. Humanity's war was not fought only by soldiers. Every human contributed, every human fought, and every human believed. The galaxy was changing, and humans were at the center of that change. The fire of resistance was no longer small, it was growing. It was visible across the stars. And the Krith, Dominion would soon learn that the species they had dismissed as weak was anything but. Because humans were no longer just defending Earth. They were attacking. They were striking back. And they were doing so with purpose, precision, and passion that no other species could match. They were humans. The Krith Dominion had never encountered resistance like this. The first battles had been shocks. The ambushes and human ingenuity had rattled them. But now, the Krith had gathered everything they had. Entire fleets moved in unison, encircling the solar system. For the first time, humanity faced the full power of the Krith war machine. Above Earth, orbital stations transmitted warnings and final battle plans. Captain Elias Ward stood in the command room of the Liberty, staring at the display of incoming fleets. Thousands of ships bristling with weapons advanced in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed under the light of the sun, a fleet designed to crush resistance in hours. Ward clenched his fists. "This is it," he said. "The moment they hoped we would fail. But they are wrong. They have underestimated us from the start, and they will learn why humans do not give up." Lieutenant Mara Chen looked at him. "Do we have enough forces?" Ward shook his head. "No, but numbers are meaningless against courage, ingenuity, and will, and humans have all three." On the ground, soldiers prepared for the worst. The cities were fortified. Every street, every ruin, turned into a stronghold. Civilians had been trained as support units, scouts, and runners. Engineers worked feverishly to repair damaged weapons and build new traps. Entire neighborhoods became hidden arsenals. The Krith assumed the humans would break under pressure. They believed their numbers would crush Earth within days. But humans thrived under pressure. Every threat forced them to adapt. Every obstacle revealed a new strategy. Captain Ward walked among the troops. "Remember," he said, "they think they can scare us. They think they can overwhelm us. But they have never faced humanity at its full strength. Today we show them why we were created for this." The soldiers nodded, their eyes burning with determination. The first strike came at dawn. Krith warships opened fire from orbit, their weapons tearing through Earth's atmosphere. Explosions lit the skies as cities shook under the bombardment. But humans were ready. Anti-orbital defenses activated, firing back with missiles, railguns, and improvised energy pulses. Smaller ships darted through the sky, striking at Krith vessels with precision. Ward commanded from the Liberty, coordinating orbital attacks with ground operations. "Target the lead cruiser," he ordered. Human fighters swarmed it, evading plasma fire and tearing through armor with coordinated attacks. Mines placed in orbit detonated in sequence, crippling the enemy's advance. For the first time, the HFY Krith felt hesitation. Their fleet was larger, stronger, and more advanced. Yet every move seemed to meet resistance. Every victory for them came with heavy losses. On the surface, the humans fought with equal determination. Krith soldiers landed in squads expecting easy victories. Instead, they met ambushes, traps, and relentless gunfire. Streets became deadly corridors, buildings exploded, and hidden sniper teams struck from the shadows. Ward moved through the command center, watching reports of battles across the globe. Tokyo, Paris, Cairo, New York. Every city was a battlefield, every street a fortress. Yet humanity held. Even when Krith forces pushed forward, humans adapted. New tactics emerged, turning enemy strengths into weaknesses. The Krith realized a terrifying truth. They were fighting a species that learned faster than they could kill. In space, Ward's fleet launched daring raids against Krith supply lines. Smaller human ships, nimble and fast, struck unexpectedly, disabling cruisers and carriers. Engineers aboard human vessels had adapted Krith weapons, turning them against their creators. For every human ship lost, 3 Krith ships were destroyed. The galaxy watched in awe. Reports filtered out through hidden channels. Humans were no longer just defending Earth. They were dictating the flow of battle, controlling the battlefield with strategy, speed, and courage. Rebel groups on other worlds began to rise openly, inspired by the humans' resistance. The Krith's reputation as an unstoppable conqueror was crumbling. Admiral Varash, observing from his command cruiser, was growing desperate. He had expected resistance, but not this. Humans were not just surviving. They were innovating, attacking, and forcing him to make mistakes. Every day his fleet's losses increased, his supply lines were stretched, and his confidence faltered. "This cannot continue," Varash growled. "They are learning too fast. They adapt at every turn." His officers suggested retreat or reinforcements, but Varash refused. To him, surrender was impossible. He would not allow humans to survive, and he would not leave the galaxy to rebellion. He ordered a final massive strike. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier, concentrated in a single assault on Earth. It was to be the ultimate test. On Earth, Ward knew this day would come. "They will throw everything they have at us," he told his soldiers. "But we have something they do not. We have heart, we have mind, we have each other, and we have Earth itself. Every ruin, every street, every human here will fight. We do not run. We do not surrender. We do not break." Engineers activated hidden orbital defenses. Civilians armed themselves with improvised weapons. Soldiers readied themselves for the fight of their lives. Even children served as runners and scouts, guiding teams through hidden tunnels. The humans were ready, even as the Krith advanced. The first wave of the Krith strike hit. Cities shook as orbital bombardments rained down. But humans responded, with counterattacks using captured technology and ingenuity. Human fighter pilots struck Krith vessels in coordinated swarms, dodging fire and striking weak points. Mines detonated in massive waves, crippling enemy ships. On the ground, Krith soldiers tried to advance. They met ambushes at every turn. Streets exploded, buildings collapsed on enemy forces, and hidden sharpshooters eliminated key targets. Human strategy had transformed the planet into a living weapon. Ward watched the battle unfold. "Hold the line," he shouted. "Push them back! Show them why we fight!" And the soldiers did. The battle raged for hours. Thousands died on both sides. Entire sections of cities were reduced to rubble. Yet humanity held. They fought with courage, cunning, and unity. Every setback was turned into opportunity. Every loss became a lesson. The Krith, despite their advanced technology, could not anticipate human creativity. They had planned for numbers, firepower, and fear. But humans had none of those limitations. They fought for something the Krith could not understand: survival, honor, and the unyielding spirit of their species. Across the galaxy, other species watched. Where they had once bowed to Krith power, they now saw hope. If humans could resist, perhaps they could rise too. By nightfall, the Krith fleet was badly damaged. Their ships retreated, regrouping for the next assault. They had thrown everything at Earth and had been repelled. The cost had been tremendous, but humanity had survived. And more than survived. They had struck back, crippled the enemy, and proven their resilience. Ward looked at the stars above. "They will come again," he said softly, "but they will not win, not now, not ever. Because humans do not give up. We adapt, we fight, we survive, and we fight harder every time they challenge us." The soldiers around him nodded. They were battered, tired, and scarred, but their eyes shone with determination. Humanity had faced the full force of the galaxy's greatest conquerors, and lived. The fire had become a storm. The Krith Dominion would not forget Earth. The solar system shuddered under the weight of the Krith Dominion's full assault. Their fleet had returned, larger than ever, their weapons bristling with power. For the first time, every human knew the stakes. This was no longer a test. This was a war for survival, for Earth, for humanity, for the galaxy. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the Liberty, the flagship that had become the symbol of resistance. Around him, officers and soldiers prepared for the inevitable clash. Every sensor blipped with warnings of incoming enemy ships. Thousands of war vessels, millions of soldiers, and weapons capable of annihilating cities loomed before them. Ward's eyes scanned the displays. "This is it," he said. "They think they will destroy us. They think they can break our spirit, but they have forgotten who we are. We were not born for peace. We were not born for comfort. We were created for war, and today we prove it to the galaxy." Lieutenant Mara Chen nodded. "All crews ready, Captain. Weapons online, drones deployed, fleet in position." Ward's gaze hardened. "Then let's give them hell." On Earth, the planet itself became part of the battle. Cities, once ruined, now served as fortresses. Every building was a trap. Every street a death corridor for Krith soldiers. Engineers had built hidden cannons, orbital turrets, and explosive traps throughout the urban ruins. Civilians and soldiers worked together, using everything at their disposal. Children carried messages through hidden tunnels, guiding squads around enemy patrols. Scientists adapted alien technology, turning it into weapons that humans could control. Even those who could not fight directly contributed, repairing weapons, tending to the wounded, and providing supplies. Every human had a role. Every human mattered. The first wave of Krith ships entered orbit. Massive cruisers fired plasma beams that tore through the skies. Missiles streaked toward Earth, exploding in firestorms. The roar of battle filled the air, shaking cities and rattling nerves, but humans were ready. Orbital defenses activated in sequence. Mines detonated, destroying enemy ships before they could reach the atmosphere. Fighter squadrons swooped in from hidden positions, striking where the Krith least expected. Captain Ward coordinated every strike. His orders flowed smoothly. "Target the lead cruiser, flank the right, drones on the left, keep pressure on them." The humans moved as one. Their strategy was chaos to the Krith, unpredictable, fast, and deadly. On the ground, Krith soldiers landed in waves, expecting easy conquest. They found streets lined with ambushes, buildings rigged to explode, and sharpshooters waiting in. The shadows. Every squad that advanced met human resistance stronger than they had imagined. Ward watched reports come in. Entire Krith battalions had been destroyed, outmaneuvered, or trapped. The enemy had technology and numbers, but humans had adaptability, creativity, and the unbreakable will to survive. "Hold the line," Ward shouted over comms. "Push them back. Show them why we fight. Show them what humanity is." And humanity responded. Across the galaxy, other species watched in awe. The slaves of the Veil, the rebels of the Ralvek, even the neutral civilizations that had hidden in fear, all witnessed the impossible. Humans were not only surviving, they were winning. They were turning back the Krith fleet with strategies no other species could match, exploiting weaknesses and striking with precision. It was becoming clear. Humans were not ordinary. Humans were a force of nature. Admiral Varash of the Krith Dominion could not comprehend it. Every tactic he had used against countless worlds failed against Earth. Every fleet he deployed was crippled by human strategy. He had thrown everything at humanity and watched it survive, adapt, and retaliate. Varash paced the bridge of his flagship, claws drumming against the floor. "They are impossible," he growled. "Every move they make, every loss they suffer only makes them stronger. How can one species endure so much and fight back harder each time?" His officers remained silent, knowing no explanation could answer him. For the first time in centuries, fear crept into the Krith ranks. In orbit, human pilots struck a decisive blow. Using captured Krith communications, they lured a fleet of cruisers into a trap. Hidden orbital mines detonated in waves, crippling their engines. Human fighters swarmed the crippled ships, firing with deadly accuracy. By the time the Krith realized the trap, dozens of their ships were destroyed. On the surface, Ward led a final counterattack against Krith landing forces. Soldiers stormed through ruined cities, turning every obstacle into an advantage. Human ingenuity and courage turned Earth itself into a weapon. For every Krith that fell, humans adapted. Every strategy the Krith tried was anticipated and countered. By nightfall, the Krith had suffered catastrophic losses. Entire fleets were destroyed, soldiers slaughtered or captured, and supply lines obliterated. Earth still stood. Humans still stood. Captain Ward gathered his fleet for one final assault. The Krith High Command had concentrated their remaining forces into a single desperate strike. It was their last chance to crush humanity and reassert control over the galaxy. Ward addressed his crews. "This is the end of their campaign. This is the moment we show them what it means to challenge humanity. We fight together, we fight smart, and we fight with everything we have. Today we end this war, not because we are lucky, but because we are human. We were not born for peace. We were created for this. Let's finish it." The fleet roared in agreement, the combined human forces ready to strike. The final battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships darted between enemy cruisers, striking weak points, disabling weapons, and causing chaos in the Krith ranks. Orbital stations fired continuously, creating barriers and traps. On the ground, soldiers pressed forward, ambushing Krith units and reclaiming cities block by block. The Krith fought with all their might, but they were no longer in control. Humanity had turned every challenge into advantage. Every loss became a lesson. Every strategy met with counter-strategy. Even the Krith's most advanced technology was outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and destroyed. After hours of relentless fighting, the Krith fleet began to collapse. Ships that had once seemed invincible were reduced to debris. Soldiers that had feared no enemy found themselves surrounded, outnumbered, and outwitted. Captain Ward ordered the final strike. Human forces converged on the Krith flagship, the heart of their command. A swarm of fighters pierced its defenses while orbital weapons fired in coordinated waves. The flagship exploded in a blinding light, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Varash, aboard a secondary cruiser, saw the destruction of his command vessel. For the first time, defeat was real. The Krith fleet, broken and leaderless, retreated. Humanity had won. The battle was over. Earth lay in ruins, scarred and battered. Cities had been destroyed, oceans had burned, and countless lives had been lost. Yet humanity stood victorious. Every soldier, every civilian, every human who had fought or contributed had proven one undeniable truth. They were unstoppable. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Species that had once cowered under Krith rule now rose in rebellion. The slaves of the Veil, the rebels of the Ralvek, the neutral civilizations, all were inspired by humanity's victory. The Krith, once feared by all, had been humbled, and the galaxy finally understood. Humans were not weak. Humans were not fragile. Humans were warforged. Captain Ward walked through the ruins of New York, the first city to see the full onslaught of Krith invasion. He paused among the debris, looking at the survivors. Children, scientists, engineers, soldiers, all had endured, all had contributed. Every one of them had been part of a story that would be told across the stars. Ward spoke quietly, but with certainty. We fought not because we wanted war. We fought because it was necessary. We fought not because we were born for it, but because we were created for it. Humanity endures. Humanity adapts. Humanity wins. The survivors nodded. They were tired, wounded, and scarred, but the fire in their eyes burned brighter than ever. In the heavens, as the Krith retreated into the void, their empire shaken to its core, the galaxy took notice. Humans were no longer a forgotten species. They were warriors, strategists, survivors, protectors. And the message was clear. Do not underestimate humanity. Do not challenge humanity. They were not born for war. They were created for it. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. A species that had been dismissed, underestimated, and overlooked, now standing as a symbol of resilience, courage, and power. Earth, scarred, but unbroken, was the proof. Humanity had survived the impossible, struck down the invincible, and shown the galaxy that they were a force unlike any other.